Hello Saxo fans, episode 47, 48? Oh, I lose count, honestly. I have to keep going back and checking my YouTube channel to see what number we're at. Anyway, right, long awaited episode this. We're going to be building the exhaust system. Now, it's probably worth saying that I'm going to do this in, let's say like 2 phases. I'm going to do an exhaust system which I'm going to build today, which will essentially get me running, and let's call it the loud system. It's going to be fairly short and will route somewhere out towards the front of the car, and that essentially will allow me to get the car running, get it on the dyno, do all that sort of stuff, but obviously it's going to be ridiculously loud. And while it's nice to have that option, actually what I will end up doing as well in the long run is making a proper full system for the car that will have, you know, some silencers in there, might even put a sports cat in to make it sort of MOT compliant. Yes, but that's for another day. And also obviously doing a full system, you know, costs a lot more in materials and will take a lot longer in time and everything. So I think for now I'm just going to do a fairly short and stumpy little system, just to get us going and running essentially. Right, so let me show you what I've bought to do that, and then I'll talk about some of the sort of challenges on the car, because it's pretty tight in there. Right, so first thing is I've bought a load of pie cuts. So we're going 3-inch system, albeit there's a couple in here that aren't 3-inch. 3-inch system, nice and easy. And I bought a sort of bunch of different stuff, so I can't remember what the angular degrees these were, but essentially some slightly bigger ones and some slightly thinner ones. But essentially all, you know, all 3-inch, and you can make up whatever sort of bends and curves that you want. So I've got about 20 of those, plus I've got a load of straight in the garage already. And I've got a V-band system as well, so I've got the V-band, and obviously the V-band bit's already on the car, so hence what I'll do is sort of marry that up to wherever it needs to go. That's the plan, so we're going to start with that. What I've also bought, because I need a wideband, I've got this AEM, I can't remember what it was called now, AEM something or other, X series, which comes with nice little gauge, which we'll get round to mounting and wiring. Well, maybe we'll do that in this video, we'll see. But most importantly, it comes with the bung for the sensor, so we'll get that popped in as well. And then obviously I need to put in another bung for the original fueling control or air fuel control for off the original harness. So essentially I'll have 2. Right, let's show you some of the packaging challenges. Right then guys, there's the V-band. So it's just sort of in here loose at the moment, but essentially that's in place. And I've got sort of this little space down here to be able to get an exhaust system out. It's really difficult to show you just how tight this all is around here, and I always knew this was going to be a bit of a challenge. And I've put the radiator in just to sort of show you, yeah, just how difficult it's going to be. And also the boost pipe is just in loose at the moment, but essentially I've got enough room between the bottom of the alternator and the boost pipe when it's in its rough position to be able to get an exhaust piece between the two, sort of down through that gap there. So I've got to sort of snake it up and around and down and through that gap. And actually what we're going to aim for is for the exhaust to exit just sort of over here in front of the front wheel, out the side of the front bumper. That's the intention. So when I said it was going to be loud, yeah, I wasn't joking. And then obviously I've got to reap the screamer somewhere, the external wastegate. So I think I'm going to shoot for into the system, straight out of here down into the 3-inch from the exhaust, unless packaging tells me I can't do that, in which case I'll probably just loop it and go straight out of the bonnet. But anyway, these are some of the challenges we're going to get through in this episode. I think the first thing really is just to start tacking on some some of these little pie cuts and work out roughly the route that this is going to need to take, because it's going to be a little bit tricky just because of the sort of, you know, everything else that's in and around it. But let's take the radiator off, because I don't think that's going to be too much in the way at the moment. I think the initial challenge is getting it around the alternator. So let's start there. Right then, the first little few bends have been made up. Essentially, pop the V-band on. I took one of my larger of the pie cuts and I actually increased the angle of it because I really wanted to bring the exhaust out this way. And then it's a case then of trying to bring it down to the right angle. I got some pre-made 90s in the end, just because I think you can get tighter curves with those by cutting them right up to where the curve begins, and I think they're generally a little bit tighter radius than what you can get with the pie cuts. So that's worked. Don't worry about this coolant pipe. I've got another fitting coming that's going to bring it up at a slightly different angle, and I'll pin it over here with a clip. So, and also got a heat jacket coming for it, so that should be fine. So now we're at a point where we're going down away from the alternator. Let me just show you some of the clearance. It's going to be quite tricky to show you this, but so hopefully you've got an idea of just how close we are around the alternator. Now it is worth noting, I have left that gap intentionally. I don't want it too big, because then I feel like I might clash with my intercooler pipe that's coming down here. And also, this is going to get ceramic coated. It will also be heat wrapped. And then I feel with all of the other heat jackets that I've got coming on, so I've got a heat jacket coming for this, heat jacket coming for this. Obviously the pipe down here is already heat wrapped. The alternator has obviously got some sort of protection. So I feel like actually with all the sort of heat measures I'm putting in place, well, I hope it'll be enough. We'll see. I might even try and figure out a way to put a little air vent underneath somewhere, so airflow from the bottom of the bumper comes up and maybe just sort of channels in around the alternator, just to try and keep that as cool as possible. But yeah, we'll figure that out at some other point. So next point now is to start going away from all the tricky bits. A little bit easier now. So yeah, 90 degree down and around and out that way, and then we'll figure out where it's going to come out of the bumper, which sort of brings us on to a point we're going to have to start cutting the bumper up at some point. So I might put all this back on, all the front end back on now, just to make sure that when the intercooler pipe here is bolted up, that we've got enough room. So let's do that, I think. Right, front end is back on, just loose. Put all the intercooler pipe work in, because that's the next challenge. So to show you from underneath, you can see there's my exhaust pipe, and that's the little gap that it's got to go through between this bracket here, which is for the alternator, and the boost pipe. So yeah, 3-inch pipe, probably through a 3.5, 4-inch gap. So pretty tight, but I think we've got just enough room. So yeah, it's almost like I planned it. Right, this is where we are at the moment. V-band end, obviously what I showed you earlier, and I've just tacked on another 90 here. And if you give me a moment, I'll pop that on the car and I'll show you where it comes out. Right, so view from above, out the turbo, around the alternator, down there, and at the moment she's just coming out under the water pipe there. Bear in mind this water pipe tucks in a bit more, it's just out of the way at the minute. And then the plan will be a couple more tubes to bring it away from the front tyre. There we go, looking all right I think so far. Obviously I've got to put a lambda boss in there and figure out how I'm going to route the screamer, but we'll get to that. I'll keep going. Going to put a couple more ends on that, I think, and just get it close to the bumper. I'm not going to protrude it out yet. I'll wait until the bumper's in place. Right, so I've put the bends in down here to a point where I think bumper's probably going to be about there. So I don't want to put any more on yet because I want to sort of drill the hole and have something to aim at in the bumper. So I'll leave that where that is for now. Pretty happy with that. So I've marked on here as well my point for the wideband sensor to go, the LSU. That has to be at a certain angle as well. It can't be sort of down or horizontal. So yeah, over here, freely accessible. I think that's a good place for it. So I'll put that in at some point. I think I'll do that when that's fully welded. But yeah, for all intensive purposes, that part of the exhaust is done. Obviously it needs fully welding and I'll do that. But the next part is to do the screamer. Now I was thinking about having that sort of coming up and going out the bonnet, but actually the direction of it, it's pretty obvious what's going to happen, isn't it? It's just going to come down here. So I think let's work on that next. Obviously I need to cut a big hole in here. So I might weld all this up first and then do that afterwards. We'll see. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I'll think about it a little bit more, but the next thing is to work on the screamer install into the exhaust. Well, there we go then. So screamer on. It's all just loose at the moment. So what I'm going to do is tighten both these bolt joints up and then make the final mark on the downpipe here so I know where to start drilling. But yeah, it wasn't too bad in the end. It's a little bit tricky to get in and get the bends right, but I think that works quite well. So bolt this up and then we'll take it all off and we'll go and drill this hole in and get this part tacked onto here, and then it'll be one piece. Right, next up then, and the last little thing I think which is a major hurdle on the exhaust is to get the lambda bosses fitted. I've got two of these, one for the wideband sensor which feeds the gauge in the car, so when the tuner is sat in the car on the rolling road he can see what the AFRs are doing and tweak accordingly. And the other one is like any normal sensor you'd have, you know, fueling control sensor on any normal car. So I'm going to run two of those. So obviously I've got two of these bosses to put in. First one I think is actually going to be pretty easy, and I think this one's going to be the one I use for the car fueling control. I'm probably going to stick that down there somewhere so the sensor is there, and that's, you know, reasonably accessible. I don't think it's going to melt there. I'll probably put a bit of heat protection over it, but I feel like that'll be okay. And the second one, a little bit trickier because space is a problem, but I feel like maybe somewhere sort of over there potentially might be not a bad place. Again, you know, I want it accessible so you can get to them if you have to, because these sensors are a bit fragile. Yeah, somewhere around here maybe. The only thing is it just doesn't look very neat there, sort of sticking out in the breeze. Yeah, I don't know, I'll have a little think about it, but the next thing is to get these two in, and then we'll go from there. Right, lambda bot is in, albeit again just tacked. So I've only got one sensor on me at the moment, but that one's going to sit there, freely accessible from underneath the car I think. And then this one here, which I'll have to heat wrap up there. Jobs are good, and again freely accessible at the front of the car, so fairly happy with that I think. Jobs are good. And right, the next thing I need to get my brain round is just finishing off the tailpipe down here. Now obviously it needs to come out of the bumper. I'm tempted to maybe just weld it all as it is now because it's ready to go, and then maybe worry about that towards the end. But anyway, I'm really happy with what we've ended up with. I think I'm going to get this welded. Right, system's all welded up there then. So I've done it as far as down here. Next thing is I want to put the bumper on so I can see how far I've got to just put it up to the bumper and essentially aim it at that. So I might remove some of the stuff. I'm not going to bother with all the intercooler and radiator or anything. I'm just going to get the bumper on and see where that's going to sit, and then we can cut the hole and essentially finish off the tailpipe down here, and then we can send it off for ceramic coating. Right, bumper's on. First time in a long time. You can just see down there the angle of the pipe. That's going to twist sort of through 45 degrees. So I've made a mark of the bumper. I think the easiest way is actually just to drill a few little pilot holes and just sort of see roughly where it's got to come through. It's difficult because I want to put another bend on it. I want that little 45 there to go on the end of it. So yeah, it's difficult to predict where it's going to be, but I figure if I just sort of put a little hole in, we'll see where we go. Just go bit by bit. Well, there we go then. The exhaust has breached the bumper. Obviously still some work left to do. Yeah, a lot of this video has been me talking about what I've been doing rather than showing it, but essentially it's just obviously a lot of welding, a lot of cutting, and yeah, it's really difficult to show that in an interesting way. So hopefully this one is not too bad. But anyway, for now, it's just all held together with masking tape. So yeah, I'm not sure what the thermal properties are of masking tape, but I'm fairly sure it won't hold. So obviously I'll tackle that up. Still got a little bit of trim work to do on the bumper itself. It's just a bit close on one part. And then of course I'll cut back the actual stainless pipe itself that sticks up, yeah, a bit too far. I'm thinking what I'll do is either sort of cut it at that angle, or might even mimic the curve of the bumper. We'll see. But anyway, yeah, it's done. So at least now I can sort of pull that off, tack it up, trim the last bit of the bumper. You can see I've had yeah, reasonable success with that. I've given it a little bit of clearance. I might want to go a bit more, we'll see. But like I say, there'll be a trim plate around there, I think, just to stop it melting everything. But yeah, pretty happy with that. Job's a good one. Okay, just welded up the tailpipe section. So this end here will attach to the bit that's already on the car. Just thought I'd show you my welding progress. Slightly better than it has been. Still not perfect, but yeah, you know, the more I do, the better I get, I think. So practice makes perfect. The slightly frustrating thing is this piece here, which needs tacking on, is the last weld I need to do on the exhaust, and I've run out of gas. So I've got to replace the bottle before I continue, but I'll get it all sort of just taped into place for now and just do the final trims to the bumper. And also we can do the trim on this piece as well and sort of get that cut final. Right, while I'm waiting for other bits and bobs, I thought I'd take the opportunity to wire in the gauge. So I've popped it on the dash there, just mounted it to the cowl, and believe it or not, it does actually work. So here we go. Obviously there's no sensor plugged into it at the moment, but yeah, that's in place, ready to go. Job's a good one. Right, final point then. So I've trimmed the excess off the end. Just need to smooth the profile just a fraction, I think, but essentially that's where she is. Fairly subtle, I think, in terms of the way it looks. I've sort of tried to follow the profile of the bumper, both in its sort of round the corner curve and top to bottom curve. And of course that tailpipe section at the moment is only held on by a bit of tape because I've run out of gas. So I'll get that sorted and then get this sent off for ceramic coating, and then we're gonna have a bit of fun with heat wrapping it. I hate that stuff, it's horrible. But yeah, we'll do that anyway. I think everything I can do to protect everything down here. So you'll also notice I've bought a bit of heat wrap there just so it doesn't cook itself. This hose doesn't cook itself on the top of the manifold. I've also bought some heat wrap for the water hose down here. Obviously it's going to be fairly close to the turbo, so I've done that. I will also heat wrap the lambda boss as well, get that sorted. And then also I want to think about having a cold air feed for the manifold, sorry, for the alternator. I'll sort that out, I'll have a little think about it. But yeah, we're nearly there. Anyway, so in the next episode you'll see all the exhaust will be done and dusted, coated and wrapped. And then I think in the next one I'm probably going to try and put some of the front end together, I think, and maybe get some fluids or something in it. yeah, we'll see. Anyway, I'll think about the next one over the next few days. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully an interesting one. If you haven't already, then please do subscribe. It really does keep me motivated. And yeah, we'll see you for the next one. See you then.